Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, please kindly rise. The Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia arrived at the venue. The Vice Presidents of the Republic of Indonesia arrived at the venue. Please kindly stay on your feet. We would like to take a 1-minute moment of silence for the tragic loss of lives from the earthquake and tsunami incident that struck Lombok and Palu. A 1-minute moment of silence begin. Thank you. Please kindly be seated. His Excellency Muhammad Yusuf Kalla, Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Jim Yong Kim, President of World Bank, Excellencies Ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to all of you. Om Swastiastu. We are delighted to welcome you to the high-level dialogue on disaster risk, financing, and insurance. We will begin with remarks by the Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Muhammad Yusuf Kalla.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent and merciful.
Say that I will be speaking Indonesian. You have interpreters in your please. Yes.
Your Excellencies, President Jim Yong Kim, President of the World Bank, Excellencies, ministers, distinguished delegates, distinguished guests. Today, I would like to extend my gratitude for your participation in this event. Essentially, we will be discussing potential solutions related to disaster risk financing and insurance. This is not only a topic that is important to Indonesia, but this topic is also important to any parts of the world because disasters will strike. Sometimes we fail to anticipate, and the impacts are destructive, and the impacts are real through the countries, the nations, and the people who are devastated of the disasters. That is why I'm very thankful that we have a discussion, high-level dialogue on disaster risk financing and insurance. In Indonesia, we recently experienced natural disasters. We had a volcanic eruption in Bali. We had experienced an earthquake in Lombok, an earthquake and tsunami that devastated Palu, Sulawesi. Our country lies in the ring of fire. And therefore, in a number of occasions, Indonesia is often called as a supermarket for natural disasters. We have earthquake, tsunami, floodings, and prolonged dry season. These are disasters that often devastate Indonesia. And for those reasons, we have to be extra attentive in anticipation for disasters and in the aftermath of disasters. In Indonesia, we have an institution called BNPB, or the Disaster Management Agency. This agency is responsible for mitigation of disasters, for responding to disasters, and for their recovery and rehabilitation after the disasters. From Indonesia's experience, rehabilitation and reconstruction, when funded by the state budget, it is difficult for the country to prepare for all resources. In Indonesia's modern history, we still remember the experience of tsunami recovery in Aceh. Without the support of UN and the World Bank, we might not able to recover and rehabilitate Aceh after the tsunami. 2 weeks after the tsunami, UN and World Bank organized a summit. And from the summit, funds were raised for the recovery from various countries, international organizations. So in Aceh, for the recovery and rehabilitation are managed to be completed. Recovery, rehabilitation in Aceh and Central Java were even awarded by United Nations as models or benchmarks for disaster recovery and rehabilitation. And Indonesia therefore has long history in managing and responding to disasters. The process is still ongoing. We are working with Minister of Finance, coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs, Pak Darmin, and Ministry of Public Works and Public Housing. We also require international support. And today, we will explore how international cooperation can also play a role in recovery and rehabilitation in the aftermath of natural disasters, particularly in Indonesia, as I have stated earlier. Disaster risk management, including how we manage fiscal risks, need to be discussed, including solutions when the risks materialize. We need to be consciously aware of such risk and include them in our planning, including in developing instruments such as disaster risk financing and insurance. State assets are managed often without considering risks of disaster. So when roads and bridges, buildings are destroyed, there is nothing to fall back onto. We rely on resources coming from the state budget. We do not want to further burden the state budget, and we do not want to be reliant, dependent on international support. We need to also think about how members of the community can participate. We need to think long term, how state assets are covered by insurance. There are no stipulations in our regulation how state assets are covered by insurance and how public can be assured that in the long run, in cases of natural disasters, they are already considered in a bigger scheme. And in central Sulawesi, we have witnessed earthquake and tsunami that devastated the area. We had thousands of schools that were destroyed, road network, bridges were destroyed, government offices were destroyed, 60,000 houses were destroyed. We need reconstruction efforts to begin, which require significant resources, and this takes a toll on our public finances, the state budget. That is why today's topic is important. We need to find solutions so that the country, the government, can provide, develop instruments to ensure state assets and to make sure that reconstruction of in the aftermath of disasters can take place. This moment, today's meeting, is timely because only a week ago, a month ago, Indonesia was devastated by earthquake and tsunami, and we need to think about long-term solutions. I would like to extend my thanks to the President of the World Bank and every participants to this meeting, and Excellencies Ministers who are here today to talk about future solutions in getting ready and anticipating disasters, and what the International Red Cross referred to Indonesia as a supermarket of natural disasters. We need to be prepared, and we need to prepare well. And again, I would like to thank you all. And it is my hope that this meeting can contribute to long-term planning, perhaps how to develop a pool of funds, how to make sure that households and infrastructures are covered, and efforts can be made to provide safety and coverage to our fiscal resources so that we are not dependent on international support, and we can rely on our strength to recover the livelihood of the community in cases natural disaster strike. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
See?
Indonesia is a country blessed with an abundance of natural resources and beauty. It straddles the equator, spanning from the Pacific to the Indian Ocean. But this is also the meeting point of three large tectonic plates: the Indo-Australian, the Eurasian, and the Pacific plate. This unique gift gives beauty, but also puts Indonesia at high risk to disasters. Almost all regions are exposed to 9 major hazards. This includes earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, volcanic eruptions, extreme weather, landslides, extreme wave, forest fires, and drought. The economic cost of disaster is also massive. From 2000 to 2016, the annual average cost is estimated at $1.4 billion. This will likely only increase without a serious effort in mitigation, preparedness, and risk transfer. The annual budget is insufficient to deal with such large losses, which can come either from a major catastrophe or from multiple smaller disasters in a given fiscal year. This creates a financing gap. More importantly, financing for disaster prevention, response, and reconstruction should not only come from the government. This needs to be shared among the public sector, private sector, and communities. In response, the Ministry of Finance has developed a disaster risk financing strategy to provide large amount of money, well-planned, timely, well-targeted, transparent, and sustainable funding to protect public finances. The government priorities for disaster risk financing and insurance are protecting public assets both at the central government and regional level, speeding up livelihood recovery, protecting all households, particularly low-income people facing especially high disaster risk, promoting the role of the private sector, especially to further develop the domestic insurance market. After considering the situation and challenges, the government of Indonesia formulates its disaster risk financing and insurance strategy as follows. Combine financial instruments to build an effective and efficient financing scheme. Retain the risk of high-frequency and low-severity shocks through the budget. Manage higher-impact disasters using contingent credit. Develop a pooling fund to strengthen the role of the budget. Transfer the risk from low-frequency and moderate to high-severity events to financial markets through insurance. Together, we can achieve the vision of Indonesia as a disaster-resilient nation that can pursue sustainable development.
We hope you enjoy the video. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia leaving the venue. Please kindly rise. Please kindly be seated. We will continue with our first panel. We kindly invite the moderator for the first panel, Ms. Sela Pazarbasioglu, Vice President, Equitable Growth, Finance and Institution, World Bank Group. I will now hand over the floor to the moderator.
Thank you. Thank you also to Your Excellency Vice President Wapak Yusuf Kala. Good day. Selamat siang. I would like to take this opportunity to express my own sadness for the tragedy that unfolded in Sulawesi 2 weeks ago. Supporting resilience to natural disasters and other shocks is a key pillar of the World Bank Group's work. Increasing resilience requires stronger infrastructure, better drainage systems, and stronger buildings. It also requires preparedness, contingency planning, and an effective rapid response to reduce the impact of disasters. Concretely, this means 3 key elements: integrating risk considerations in budget planning and public investment management, financial planning and institutional capacity building to ensure that money is available when it's needed, where it's needed, and it flows efficiently to those that need it the most in an efficient and transparent manner. And third, crowding in private capital through contingent public finance facilities and system-wide insurance systems and instruments. In the very fast digital age that we are in, it's also very important that we harness technology and digital tools to make sure that we make these systems more efficient and transparent. We are honored to support Indonesia's Ministry of Finance in their work on financial resilience. I would also like to acknowledge the support from our developing partners, including especially Switzerland, for their long-standing financial support and partnership in integrating disaster risks into better fiscal management. Today we are here to look forward and to recognize Indonesia's efforts to build disaster resilience. We have a very distinguished panel to share experiences and insights into how Indonesia can strengthen its financial resilience to disasters. Over the next 40 minutes, we will hear from them, and I would like to invite them to the platform, please. World Bank Group President Jim Yong Kim, Her Excellency Ibu Sri Mulyani, Minister of Finance, Indonesia, His Excellency Bapak Basuki Hadi Mulyono, Minister of Public Works and Public Housing of Indonesia, His Excellency Benjamin Diokno, Secretary of Budget and Management of the Philippines, and His Excellency Ono-san, Alternate Vice Minister of Finance of Japan. I would like to invite President Kim, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. I too would like to start by offering our condolences to our brothers and sisters here in Indonesia. And I think the lessons are not as clear from this tragedy as they should be. As Vice President Bapak Kala mentioned, Yusuf Kala mentioned, Indonesia sits in a ring of fire. It is inherently vulnerable to risks. But the message that I want to give, and especially to the people of Indonesia, is that Indonesia is an extremely resilient country. In fact, despite the many, many shocks dating back, the ones that we remember most vividly are Aceh, despite the high risk and the many, many shocks, Indonesia has continued to do everything it can to be a leader in preparing for these kinds of shocks. And it's a very complicated and difficult business, especially when you're in this particular geographical zone. The many things that Indonesia has done, for example, in Aceh, Indonesia built the country's disaster risk management infrastructure from the ground up, enacting the legislation establishing what Vice President Kala mentioned, the National Disaster Management Authority. After the Yogyakarta and Central Java earthquake and the Mount Merapi volcanic eruption, Indonesia became a leader in the Recompact approach, which puts communities at the center of housing reconstruction and resettlement. The houses built under this approach meet the seismic standards required by the government, but they do so in a way that allows communities to decide their own house type and use salvaged materials. The communities become co-creators and active stakeholders in rebuilding stronger than before. Recompact is also about 30% less expensive than conventional housing contracting, and working with people as co-creators leads to better building quality and greater owner satisfaction. So let me just be very clear. The lessons we have learned from Recompact are so powerful that we're taking them and trying to apply them in other countries all over the world. In this particular case, Indonesia is a leader in the world in how to respond to these disasters. There are all the foundations here to respond and recover quickly. And I have seen myself, I have visited some of these Recompact villages. I've seen how communities are now intricately involved in the response to disasters, and I know that in Sulawesi it will be exactly the same. When I visited these sites, there was a very different sense. The community knew that it had built back better. After the Haiti earthquake, that was the refrain over and over again, build back better. And it was at least partially it happened, but it took a very long time. My hope is that with the solidarity of the entire global community, that in Sulawesi we can build back better again and even more quickly. For Ibu Sri Mulyani and Bapak Basuki, we're here to support you in achieving the extremely ambitious goals that you set through National Disaster Risk Finance and the insurance strategy. And the way that we can help are several. Now, first, not only do we share your experiences with other countries, but we can share the experiences of 60 other countries with you. So over the recent decades, we've learned a great deal from our partnerships with countries about building comprehensive financial protection strategies to deal with disasters. This has also helped us to develop regional approaches. For example, under the mandate of the ASEAN +3 finance ministers, we're supporting the Southeast Asian Disaster Risk Insurance Facility, or CDRIF, in close collaboration with Japan. And Japan has consistently been a leader in bringing the world's attention to disaster risk management. The CDRIF program will develop financing instruments, including for the insurance of public assets, advanced knowledge exchanges, will leverage investments in the development of public goods, and mobilize technical assistance. The CDRIF initiative is also pushing the envelope with technology. For example, working with the European Space Agency to estimate the impact of floods in real time to help inform better decision making. Today we'll also hear from Japan and the Philippines, the two countries that will bring important lessons and experience to this particular group. Second, we can help by customizing instruments and building institutions and sustainable mechanisms to ensure that sufficient financing is always available. Disaster. As a financial institution, we can make available a range of